Well, Senator, the first question I want to ask you, you've actually partially answered already, but the context I'm going to ask it in is a little different, so I'm going to ask it anyway.
Yes, sir.
After 1978, the system of appointing fire chiefs was changed from a civil service position with tenure to serving at the pleasure of position. Several of the fire chiefs that were appointed under this new system came from outside the department and had no knowledge of the history of the department or the city. Since none of these chiefs lasted more than 3 or 4 years, it could be said that by the time they were knowledgeable enough to manage the department, they were gone.
Mm-hmm.
Because of this, the practice, in my opinion, the corporate culture of the professional fire department has been lost. My question to you would be, do you support the practice of hiring fire chiefs from outside the department? And do you think the fire chief should serve at the pleasure of the mayor instead of having tenure when a new mayor is elected?
Mm-hmm. I do believe that the fire chief should serve at the pleasure of the mayor. It will be my strong preference that the next fire chief that we have comes from within the department. But I believe the fire chief should serve at the pleasure of the mayor because at the end of the day, if the fire chief is not getting the job done, the buck should stop with the mayor. And the mayor should not be able to use as an excuse that the fire chief is not doing their job because of tenure. So that's how I feel about that. And I am a data-driven person. So to the extent that you show me that when we bring in high flyers from out of town, that they're just here for a short period of time. And when we have had people with long and distinguished tenure such as yours, they've come from within the department, I will be guided by what is best. So I start from a position of wanting a person who's from inside the department because I want people who are in the fire department to know that they can go from where they are today to running it. It's all a part of morale and division, and everybody who becomes a firefighter in the city of Atlanta needs to know and believe that if they work hard, do their job, and become excellent and respected by their peers, that they can get the top job in the system. I have learned that lesson up close, and that's where I will be.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
All public safety disciplines except the fire service have immediate access to other local, state, and federal agencies and private sector resources in the event of disastrous incidents. However, for many of the fire service core responsibilities in the hot zone, there are no external agencies capable of providing the immediate support other than mutual aid under certain circumstances. I want to be very clear on this,
Yes.
on establishing this. What I'm really saying here is when you look at emergency medical services in Atlanta,
Yes.
it's really the fire service as first responder, and then there's Grady and many more ambulance services.
Yes.
When you look at law enforcement in the city of Atlanta, there's the Atlanta Police, there's county police, there's FBI, there's Secret Service. When we have incidents that are of rather big scope, all of these pull together real quick to work on the incident. At the same time, windstorms and natural disasters that require public works and private contractors, there's all kinds of those resources. However, if there is a fire situation, such as a MARTA train derailing 130 feet underground, the only people that can deal with that are those who have protective clothing, breathing apparatus, basically the fire service. Yet, there's only one fire department in Atlanta. So my question is, despite this, staffing in Atlanta Fire Rescue Department has been reduced approximately 40% in the last 15 years. My question is this: what are your thoughts on staffing, training, morale, response time, and equipment when you think about this fact?
My response is that there is going to be no more important function in my government than the public safety function, including firefighters. My response is the only time that I have ever proposed a tax increase of any kind, even by referendum, was to fully fund police and fire. My response is that we just had a 3 mil tax increase, and if I am elected mayor, I will shift more resources of those 3 mils to police and firefighters. My response is that after 9/11, for what you say to be true in the city of Atlanta, that represents a threat that I will not tolerate as mayor. Atlanta has CNN here. It has the Hartsfield-Jackson Airport. And despite the fact that we may be feeling very good and safe today, I still worry about Atlanta being the subject of terrorist and other kinds of extraordinary attacks. And when you have violence against our city of that kind, you don't get do-overs and second chances. And the one thing that the Brian Nichols case has shown me is that you had better be ready from the first minute your feet hit the floor in the office, because the public is unforgiving. They don't care that you didn't have time to review or all of the facts that you get on television and talk about. I believe that firefighters are an essential part of that element, and they should be treated as such, and that they should be fully integrated, and that it's helpful for the overall public safety component because of the unique training that police and firefighters receive. That's what I believe.
Thank you.
And if that green light wasn't on, I would say more.
Throughout its history, Atlanta has suffered numerous infamous and tragic incidents that were made worse by inadequate prevention, response, mitigation, and recovery by the Atlanta Fire Rescue Department.
Yes, sir.
In the aftermath of the typical reaction by mayor and council has been a brief period of improvement, only to be followed by a subsequent decline in the capabilities of the fire service. My fear is that because we are currently in a period of neglect, we are setting ourselves up for another one of these tragic incidents. My question, do you agree? And if so, as mayor, what will you do to reverse the recent trend and promote a sustainable improvement in the capabilities of the Atlanta Fire Rescue Department?
Well, I think a dedicated revenue source with transparency will help in the public safety component. So, for example, even though we've had the $3 million increase, you can still, by law, dedicate a revenue source without a new increase. So I don't want you to think that I'm talking about raising additional revenue. What I am talking about is transparency and making sure that revenue that is meant for police and fire actually reaches them. And so while police and fire is a hot topic right now, when it's not a hot topic, I want it to be funded in the same fashion, treated in the same way, and to have the same level of transparency when you all go out and do something heroic like rescue someone from a bridge or rescue someone from a construction site, and then everybody is talking about firefighters, and then it goes down. But I think that in order for Atlanta to be what I want it to be, we've got to remove these public safety issues off the table. I was in a home, in a meet and greet, where a person in the back of the room raised their hand and said they were trying to figure out how to provide private fire service for their neighborhood. I mean, this gentleman literally told me, we have private security patrols. We now would like to figure out, because of the change in the ISO rating, how we can get an independent fire truck. When people with resources make that kind of decision, and even with people who are not as fortunate, it shows a breakdown in the confidence in the most basic functions of government. The most basic part of government is, if a fire is in my house, I can pick up the phone and a fire truck is going to come. So I just wanted to give you a specific example of what I'm seeing. You mentioned the campaign trail. That's what I'm seeing on the campaign trail. And it can't stand. It can't stand, and you have the property tax bills that people are getting right now. You can't have it both ways. You need to show people what they're getting, or you're going to have a continuing problem with people every single time you have to increase the cost of government services in any way.